All right, so the single most common question I get from people is, my iron or my iron saturation is high, but my ferritin is low. What is going on here? And you know, they have all the symptoms of iron deficiency, but seemingly, you know, there's a bunch of iron floating around in the bloodstream, right? And that's gonna be scary for a lot of people. So, you know, should you discount the high iron and just keep pumping, you know, iron supplements, using cast iron, you know, until your ferritin finally comes up into range? You know, should you stop your iron supplements because, oh my goodness, your serum iron is high on the blood test and that is toxic, oxidative stress all over the place. Oh my goodness, what are you doing to yourself? Or do you have hemochromatosis? One of these things potentially could be happening, right? And don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is what I'm going to tell you. You know, first off, what is serum iron? You know, that's being measured on your blood test. Very confusing for a lot of people. But serum iron, you know, it is not just free floating iron out, you know, floating in the bloodstream, oxidizing things, irritating everything. That serum iron, and this, you know, patients and practitioners alike often are confused by what this reading actually is, because it's not just free floating iron. You know, serum iron actually equals essentially transferrin, or a transfer protein for iron. Because if it was just free floating iron out there, that would be highly toxic. That would be promoting massive oxidative stress. But when you see serum iron, you know, serum iron, when I say 100 micrograms per deciliter on your blood test, this is actually saying what is the amount of iron attached to this or bound to transferrin, a protein that circulates iron around to the spleen, to the liver, to the bone marrow, to be utilized by these tissues in the making of red blood cells. So for most labs, a serum iron above 160 micrograms per deciliter for women and 180 for men is considered high. And many people, when they start supplementing with iron, will have a higher serum iron level. But like I said, remember, that's not just free floating iron out there. That is essentially transferrin. So what would we want to consider if you get your labs back and your serum iron comes back, say it's 220 micrograms per deciliter? Oh my goodness. But your ferritin is only 20. So your serum iron would suggest you have plenty of iron, but your ferritin would suggest you are actually still at an iron deficit, because it is suggested that, you know, your bone marrow actually slows down production of red blood cells when, or erythropoiesis, when serum ferritin is less than 30. So now serum iron can change from meal to meal, you know, even within 24 hours of supplementation, it can change, generally going up, you know, depending on your level of activity. If you had to exercise really intensely, sweated a bunch, you have an infection going on, you know, an acute inflammatory response, all these things can mess with serum iron levels on your lab tests. And that could be within a few hours, which is why it's not a very reliable marker of your true iron status. Whereas the ferritin is a much, much more stable marker, and it is why we consider it the gold standard. And it can also change for things other than just iron deficiency or iron excess, but it is much, much more stable. However, I always check serum iron, iron saturation, total iron binding capacity, ferritin, CBC. I always check all those when I'm looking at iron status and iron metabolism, because rarely across the board does zeroing in on one single little marker when it comes to labs tell us what we need to know, or help us, you know, cure a person of whatever the ailment is. It's quite rare, because there's so many multifactorial things happening with the body at every given millisecond every day. All right, so now back to the serum iron. What could potentially be an underlying issue that leads to a high serum iron beyond, just having hereditary hemochromatosis, or one of the, potential genetic differences there leading to a state of, excessive iron in the body. So we talk about, or we could talk about, the hereditary hemochromatosis another time. There's plenty of information out there. That's kind of the most common reason for high iron levels, or at least people think it is. And that, there's an entirely different approach that we would have to go after, and how to address that versus the functional mechanisms that would be at play, that would lead to high serum iron from either supplementing, or using cast iron, or eating lots of red meat and that kind of stuff. So the first one I consider is low B12, cobalt. In people with B12 deficiency, that can lead to hemolytic anemia when you have B12 deficiency. And in this, iron ends up not being used by the erythroblasts because the process of erythropoiesis is compromised. And erythropoiesis, I know it's a big word, but that is literally the process of making red blood cells. So when that process is compromised, this leads to a disrupted iron distribution and a high serum iron level. But it does not indicate excess iron or iron overload as an issue for the body. So B12 treatment in these cases often will lead to a decreased serum iron. And that is a good thing because hemolytic anemia is likely being taken care of. And you're not having essentially, red blood cells blowing up on you. All right, so another nutrient deficiency that can lead to elevated serum iron is a vitamin B6 or a pyridoxine deficiency. So B6 is necessary as well, just like B12, for red blood cell formation. And without it, iron cannot be converted to hemoglobin. And if you can't convert iron into hemoglobin, guess what? You're not going to carry much oxygen around. That's not going to work out for you, right? So hemoglobin is the protein that's found on red blood cells that literally carries oxygen around from your lungs to the rest of your body. And when we lack vitamin B6, and that, there's all kinds of reasons that potentially be happening. When we lack enough B6, then we slow down the production of hemoglobin. And without hemoglobin, you're essentially blocking iron's ability to jump on board the red blood cell and get carried around. And this can then lead to a buildup of serum iron, or that transferrin can go up in the blood because the body essentially can't, or the transferrin has no place to drop off iron to be utilized because there's not enough B6 present. All right, so another consideration would be elevated lead levels, that metal. We don't need lead at all in our body, but lead levels being high can actually impair hemoglobin production. So just like B12 deficiency, B6 deficiency can decrease hemoglobin production, so too can it be a lead excess. So 2 deficiencies, 1 excess can lead to a high serum iron level. Other things to consider would be oral contraceptive use, estrogen therapy, like menopausal estrogen stuff, or maybe you had your ovaries removed, those kind of things, if you're female, that is, and you're using bioidentical hormone therapy. All those could lead to higher serum iron levels. Steroid therapy could as well, like cortisone injections, cortisone therapy, or even estrogen dominant states, they could lead to a high serum iron level in spite of ferritin still being low. And actually just like crazy amounts of stress, cortisol ends up being higher on an excessive basis. That also potentially lead to a higher serum iron while ferritin still would be low. So I know there's a lot of different things to consider, but if you're in the situation where your serum iron is high, or iron saturation is high, and your ferritin is low, rather than just continually pumping yourself full of iron, I would think, okay, what mechanism, what thing am I missing that could help me out here? Because just giving yourself more iron is unlikely to solve the problem. Even though you need iron, it definitely sounds like you need iron. So, all right, so one other thing to consider, just kind of as a side, is you could get your transferrin level checked. Especially if you're supplementing with iron and you're not seeing improvements in symptoms, you're noticing that your serum iron is high, maybe your total iron binding capacity isn't very high or is high, just actually getting the transferrin level checked, which is not done often for most people, and it's not usually part of a standard iron panel. You'll have to get it done separately or ask for it separately. I want actual transferrin. I want that protein done. I don't want just the serum iron level. And this can be affected by transferrin. It can be affected by liver function, by kidney issues, or even some people have inborn genetic defects that may lead to transferrin not being efficiently created. And if transferrin is not efficiently created, if it's kind of a slowdown there, then you're not gonna be able to move iron like you want to be able to move iron, and that can lead to slower red blood cell production, decreased erythropoiesis, decreased oxygen transfer, all that, and potentially all these symptoms of iron deficiency because there's not enough transferrin available. All right, so I think these are all great talking points to review with your doctor related to overcoming iron deficiency, and I would love to hear how things are working for you. Iron deficiency is such a huge, massive, big deal out there. Millions and millions and millions and millions of people are suffering with it and are having issues getting their levels right and having symptomatic relief and enjoying robust health like they should be doing because they're putting in so much effort into their health. So I would love to hear what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, what's been just this huge eye-opening experience related to iron and overcoming iron deficiency, because it will help so many people. If you struggled with it, man, there's somebody else out there struggling with it. If you overcame it, there's somebody else out there that needs the information you have to help them overcome it. All right, I'm Dr. Matt. Like this, share it, subscribe, and send it to somebody who needs to see a new way or a different way of looking at things when it comes to helping their iron levels get where they need to be. Talk to you guys later.